Welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book Podcast, where we focus on the journey, not the destination. Brought to you by the Baseball Blue Book app. Are you in the book? And now, your host, Eric Wobanaw. Welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book Podcast. My name is Eric Wobanaw, the president of the Baseball Blue Book. Excited to have another coach. We're actually moving out of the Northeast and into the Midwest, the upper Midwest. And we've got Coach Evan Brandt with us at Presentation College. How are you, Coach?
Good, Eric. How are you today?
I'm doing really good. And hey, before we get started, I want to make sure to remind everybody to subscribe to the channel. For those that don't know, subscribing to the channel helps YouTube find the people that are looking for podcasts like ours. So I appreciate you guys helping me out and like the podcast as well. Comments, I always respond back to the comments and appreciate people with their feedback. But we're excited today. We've got a great program up here in South Dakota, Presentation College. And with Coach Brandt, why don't you go ahead and do a quick introduction? I've already done it for you, but I always ask people to do it themselves, and then we'll get started right away with your coach's journey.
Yeah, I'm Evan Brandt. I'm the head baseball coach at Presentation College here in Aberdeen, South Dakota.
Okay, that's great. Well, hey, let's go ahead and start by kind of going back in time a little bit. When did you really start playing ball, and when did you realize that baseball was really the sport that you wanted to be part of long term?
Yeah, I started playing as far back as I can remember. Couldn't be an age, but played local rec league, t-ball, that stuff, little league, Babe Ruth, everything like that. So just an average player, definitely not a standout guy. But I think, the time that I really realized that coach something that I wanted to do was actually when I got with a coach, and I'll mention him by name. His name is Nathan Kilness. He's actually now a assistant at University of Wisconsin Stout with one of my really good buddies, Ben Kincaid. And, when Nathan started coaching us, I think baseball got a little more interesting to me and kind of diving into why we do things and how we do things with him. So I think at about 14, 15 years old, I was, pretty interested in that side of the game, the thinking side of baseball and what I can do to get better and how I can get others around me better. So he was definitely, the most influential piece in that puzzle there when it comes to, my recognition of I need to be a coach.
That's awesome.
So,
That's awesome. So a lot of coaches, they always have another coach that was really instrumental in their journey and getting to where they are. You mentioned that you're kind of an average player. I think that's important to talk about because there's a ton of programs out there and there's a ton of baseball to be played. Did you play college ball?
Yeah, I played at Finlandia.
You did play at Finlandia. Okay.
Right. Yep.
And so talk about, average, right? You still played college ball, right? That doesn't mean that, average players typically aren't playing college ball. Talk about what that means to you kind of now as a coach, and how you felt about that when you were going through kind of that recruiting process or even just wanting to play at the next level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it means a lot to me right now just because I think that, my self-evaluation at that age was something that I didn't totally recognize today. And when you look back on it, yeah, you think you're all right. I can hang with some guys, some guys I can't. So it's hard for kids to find that fit of, where do I actually need to go? I throw 82, where should I go?
Right.
So I think recognizing that early and finding small schools, that needed guys that could play defense well, but, I wasn't a great hitter. So that was definitely one of my things that I was looking for was someone that, was really interested in finding a defensive catcher. And especially at my stature, I was only 5'8", about 135 pounds coming out of high school. So, it's one of those things that unique fit for me wasn't all over the country. So it was nice to recognize that early. And I think for my coaching part of this is I try to find those guys.
Right.
When I see that 5'6" kid that's a buck 45, but he's got some swing talent and he's a grinder on defense. Yeah, we're calling that kid every time. And I think it's been really beneficial for me just in the terms of, the guys that I've recruited is we've kind of taken some chances on some kids and they've turned out really well. And we talk all the time about, we don't care about your batting average after 4 years. References aren't going to call me and ask me about your batting average. They're going to ask me who you are as a human, right?
Oh, that's true.
And I think those kids give us that opportunity, to really be good references for them. So I think it's nice that, I had that experience as a player of just being, I might have even been below average, to be honest with you. But, it's one of those things that I see a little bit of me in some of those guys. So I'll take a chance on them and bring them into our program and provide that culture and framework for them. So
I think that's really, really important what you just said. First thing is really the self-evaluation, but also the coaches understanding that as well and finding those fits. We talk about that all the time with coaches. No matter what the level, it's really finding the fit that makes sense. But you're taking chances on these kids, not just from a kind of a progression or a projection perspective. You just want good kids that can come into the program from a culture perspective. Talk about what that looks like, right? And really everything that you're talking about, kids are listening to this, and I think that's so important. They may not have the self-awareness and the ability to do self-evaluation until maybe it's too late. And sometimes they hit a program that might be a little above where they are, and they're going, "Holy crap, I don't know if I can hang with this." But talk about why that's so important for you and at Presentation College.
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, kids finding their fit's important. The last thing that I don't know if this is so true anymore, but the last thing that I wanted to do at 18 years old was go back to my little small hometown in Wisconsin and say, I got cut. That was the last thing I wanted to do. So for, the players side of finding that, I think that's really important somewhere where you're going to be there for 4 years, as this transfer thing gets more important to us coaches as well. That's something that I look at. I can't speak for every coach, but if you've been to 4 schools, I'm not sure what we're going to do. Yeah. We may not pursue that.
Right.
So I think some of that stuff is just becoming more and more important, every day. So the other side of that is that culture piece. What is a culture fit? I think that's sometimes a hard thing for kids to evaluate. One of the things that I believe in my team culture is that our culture's fluid. We can absorb anybody. We can take a kid that maybe a coach gave us an evaluation that, hey, he's got a little bit of attitude problem. Okay. Well, maybe we're not as strict. Maybe we do a better job of communicating. Maybe, right. Our coaching staff relates to this kid better, whatever it is. So I think that's really important for our culture is that you won't hear me. I have a set of culture, right? But you won't hear me harp on it all day. I do think it needs to be changing. I do think it needs to be growing, and I think it needs to be catering to our athletes, which is super important to me. I don't treat every kid on my team the same, and they know it. I'm pretty friendly with all of them, but some kids need to be pushed and some kids need to be pulled, and right. Some kids just need a little bit of space. So I think that's got to be fluid all the time, and that's super important to me.
I think that's really good. Do you see that the kids these days? I mean, you've been doing this for a while, but still a young coach. Do you see that kids are a little bit more self-aware of their talent, or do you still have? Because I mean, back in the day, right? I'm older. You only had the ability to kind of self-evaluate you with the people that were around you, right? And today, technology and the internet and all these things, you would think that the kids would have a little bit better idea or ability to provide themselves with kind of where they fit in this. Do you see that, or is there still kind of the issue of maybe kids thinking that they're better than they are, or even not as good as they think they are?
Yeah, I mean, I think we always run into, those little things where we get kids in and we're thinking, hey, this kid's, going to be an awesome piece of development for us. We're really going to be able to get this kid bigger, stronger, faster. And he comes in and, it's, well, coach, I turned down a D1 offer to come here. Well, okay. I mean, maybe, but we
Right.
don't know. And the other side of it, though, is that it's gotten so much better on the opposite side too because of the travel coaches, the high school coaches. Like they're super
Right.
aware. They're doing an amazing job of helping these kids and telling these guys, hey, you really fit this D3 school in the Northeast, right? And I think that's super important. I think those guys have been just unbelievably beneficial to us, and especially talking to a lot of those guys, it's amazing when I hear them say, hey, this kid's, he's got good stats, but he's going to be this level. This is where we see him at, and it's awesome because I know the kid's getting that same conversation from
Right.
that coach, and that's super helpful for
No, that's
us.
good.
So
That's good. So you talked about your culture kind of being fluid, and no one kid is kind of treated the same. It's just based on their experience. With that being said, are there still, kind of a I don't know, a category of player that you're looking for? Is it really more of a development side, or are they wanting to you also said about the kind of the 4 years. You want to find kids that are wanting to be here for 4 years. There's still that category of kids that are in there. Kind of talk a little bit more about, because you mentioned a lot of things, right? You talked about maybe they have a bad attitude, but maybe it was the coaches that they were around. Kind of walk through a scenario of a recruiting, or you've a player's reached out to you, they've sent you some information. What do you go through from that evaluation? What are the things that are most important for you?
yeah, so I'm the only people that talks like this, but I actually backwards. I go completely backwards on the recruiting process. We don't talk about Aberdeen. We don't talk about presentation. We don't do any of that initially. The first thing I do is I get the kids' GPA and estimated family contribution, and I give them a financial aid package and say, can you afford this? If they say yes, we start to move forward, right?
Okay.
So obviously, we're looking for kids that can afford
Right.
private education. Important. The other thing, once we get past all that stuff, is we're looking for kids that don't want to be near home. You know, we don't have high school baseball here in Aberdeen. We have Legion baseball. So you're really picking from a crop of 14 kids, right?
Right. Right.
And not all those kids are going to be seniors. So I think our area is sometimes a little bit tough. The other thing is I've got Northern State, which is a D2 school, coached by D Barry over here right in town, and they do an awesome job. Their whole coaching staff is really cool guys. They do a great job, getting out in South Dakota and just hammering it. So sometimes for me, that competition is I got to get out. I got to go to Texas. I got to go to California, stuff like that, right? So we need kids that are comfortable being away from home,
That's
right?
that's important.
Absolutely. And once that's kind of gone through, the thing that we're looking for is care. We want kids that care about baseball. We want kids that care about school. I don't want them to, wake up in the morning and say, well, I can miss workouts this morning because it's just not that big of a deal, right? We want kids that if they wake up 4 minutes late, they're just running in their pajamas to the weight room, and getting in there and getting a lift in with Coach Grant. That's what we need, and that's what we look for. I think that takes care of a lot of other problems. I think that piece of I care about baseball, I care about my team, I care about my coaches. I think that takes care of a lot of problems.
What's the most important kind of tool that you use to kind of help that? Is it recommendations? Is it talking to their coaches? How do you go through that process? Because until that happens, you really don't know. So what do you do to kind of weed through that?
Yeah, so I've definitely the coach, talking to their coaches and stuff like that. It's super important. We need to do that. I tend to not do that until a kid's ready to make a decision. I don't want to waste the coach's time, and I don't want to waste the player's time, and I don't want to waste my
Right.
time. I find it to be pretty valuable. So, I think one of the other side things that I do is I actually call the school, and trust me, I've got a ton of like pushback on this. I'll call the school and ask for the counselor, and they'll say no. The initial thing will be no, and I'll have to tell them, hey, I'm a college baseball coach. I'm recruiting this kid, and I need to talk to somebody other than the coach about this kid.
Yep.
And I found that to be actually really, really beneficial. And trust me, I've got some kids that, we get a really good evaluation on them, and then the school counselor tells us a couple things, of, hey, he misses class a little bit,
right,
whatever. Okay, good. We've got some things on our radar now, and we can, put together an accountability plan for this kid before he gets here. So,
well, that's good. I think that's great. We're going to take a step back now because we kind of jumped right into how you do this, and I really appreciate you being open with us. But from a journey perspective, you said you had a number of people kind of early on that helped you kind of steer you into the direction of being a coach. Your first couple things that you did, Finlandia was I think that was a D3, wasn't it? Yeah,
correct.
D3, and then but you also did with the collegiate league. Obviously, those are typically top tier players, correct? Doing the summer ball. What were some of the things that you took from those experiences and now doing NAI? And you also mentioned something that's really important. NAI they're typically private schools. Most important is, can they afford it before you kind of go through all of the hoops in order to get there. What were some of the things that you took through your journey that helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah, well, I'm going to just hire good people. The collegiate league, I know you mentioned that, but I actually did that from Michigan. And I hired a young kid, Parker Lynn. He's an assistant coach at St. Vincent College right now. I hired him. He was like 19 years old, and I took a chance on him, and he absolutely killed it. He just did an amazing job. I literally had to sit back and just support him, and it was great. So he did an amazing job. And same thing with Finlandia. I came in as an assistant, and the head coach was our compliance guy, and he was our sports management professor, Steve Nordstrom. Very, very big influence on my life. He taught me some great lessons, and I think first and foremost, the number one lesson he taught me was learn how to manage people.
Yeah.
Right. The business stuff is easy to learn, but learn how to manage people, and I think that was influential in my life. I've had a good athletic director there in Curtis Wittenberg, very patient man, very, very supportive, very understanding, and I'm kind of I'm a firebrand. So, he let me go off and handle it the right way. So he did an amazing job with me there, let me grow, let me fail a little bit and really learn from that. So I appreciated that. And then my assistant coaches at Finlandia, bunch of good dudes, and I'll rattle them off: Joey Krug, Aaron Froelich, Malcolm Purdy, CJ Kaler, and I brought Coach Matt Valen with me here to PC, and those guys have all been influential in my life. They've been, I don't tell them that enough, but they were just an amazing help for me, and really, kind of helped me do the things that we've done. So
that's awesome. We talk a lot about coaches from a baseball perspective, but you just brought up a lot of really good points of, baseball. Being a head coach is really like being a CEO of a company, right? And depending on what company it is, you have small companies and you have big companies, and you have a lot of people that work for you. You have a few people working for you, right? But it's still the same role. And you brought up a really good point of hiring well and managing people. Totally different than your players, right? It's the actual coaches. I'd like to actually take a little bit of time and talk about that a bit. Because you're responsible for not only finding players that fit your culture and fit what you're wanting to do, but also the assistants that you have there have to follow that as well. Do you use a different process to find that, or is it just kind of learning as you go? What do you do in order to find these people, and more importantly, what do you do to make sure that they are successful? Because obviously assistant coaches are looking for that next position as well, right? You were an assistant. Most people started assistant, and then they want to get to that head coach. What do you do specifically kind of to help them build their career and build their resume?
Yeah, so my assistants started off as former players. In fact, the guy that took over Finlandia, I call him a kid because he played for me.
Awesome.
But that's Luke Paul, and he was my assistant coach for 4 years, and was on my staff as a volunteer all the way until I left. An amazing human, just a great guy, really nice, and one of the things that I think has been beneficial for a lot of those guys and for me to do is just be hands off with them, help them when they need it,
Yeah.
but they know baseball. They know what they're doing. You know what I mean? And I think I attribute a lot of that to, one of my former pitching coaches, Malcolm Purdy. He played at Grand Canyon. I actually knew him through a mutual contact, Sean Rapay. And, Malcolm came in and I told him, I said, it's all you. Like, you've got the pitching and I'm going to leave you alone. And we did that, and he excelled at it. He did an amazing job of building relationships with the players. And I think that's what it's about. I think if you find those people, you're not going to have to micromanage them, as you need to, right? And that's important for me because I definitely have a lot going on, and I've got a lot of hitters that I'm worried about, and relationship pieces that we're worried about and stuff like that. So I think just finding those guys was easy for me right away, just because those guys had played for me, and I've known them. So I think that was perfect. Now, currently, like, Coach Matt never played for me. He was an All-American at Cortland out in New York, and he plays in the independent leagues in the summer. But I put a thing out on ABCA job posting, and he reached out to me about that. We talked for a couple weeks, and did some interviews, and definitely found the right fit there. So, and he does just an awesome job with our guys, and he's working out too, right? Trying to go back and
Right.
and play in the independent league. So it's fun to see him, get in there with the boys and do that stuff. So
That's awesome. No, that's great. I mean, really, your philosophy crosses the board. I mean, the same thing that you're looking for players. You're kind of, hands off. Let them be who they are. Build the culture around the people that you have, and you're doing the same thing for the coaches. I think that takes a lot of confidence from you as a coach, right? That you're trusting these people to run your program in particular areas, and allowing them to just kind of do their thing. Kudos to you and the confidence that you have for that. What is the most difficult part of your job?
the paperwork. Seriously, just getting the orders in and stuff like that. I mean, I'm pretty organized, so it doesn't bother me too much. But when I look back, you know, putting together a practice plan, that's fun.
Right.
It's great. Going and hitting fungo and teaching guys how to, field ground balls and hit the other way and stuff like that. That's fun. It's just not a job. It's a facilitator position, right? So when it comes to it, that administrative piece is probably the hardest. That and answering questions when my kids get in trouble. So.
Boy, isn't that the truth? I laugh because I love my job as well, but the most difficult part is answering to the board, the paperwork, filling out the reports, providing the progress type things. It's like this is not what I want to do, but it's certainly important, kind of the grand scheme of things. Why did you move to Presentation College? What was the transition like? What was the process, and what was the real reason behind it?
Yeah, good question. This is probably a question that a lot of people want to hear the answer to, right? So my wife followed me to the UP of Michigan to coach at Finlandia. We lived in a very small town called Calumet. There's nothing there. We got to drive 20 minutes to get to Walmart. So she's kind of been begging me for, maybe a year or two. I had a group of boys that graduated that meant a lot to me. And when they graduated, she was kind of like, all right, we got to get to a bigger city. We got to go somewhere where I've got a Target and a Starbucks, right? So, I thought it was about time. I've been at Finlandia since 2015. So I thought it was about time for me to, kind of repay that favor for her and help her out a little bit on that aspect of things. So it's been a heck of a journey on that end. I actually came out here August 23rd. She stayed up there and sold our house, which we sold and then we drove out here with our two dogs and a 26-foot U-Haul through a just unreal snowstorm. We were driving 40 miles for about 420 miles.
Oh
So
my gosh.
it's definitely been an adventure there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the transition was trying to find some things that fit me, which is small
Right.
school, close knit campus, athletic director that cares and is ready to be there, which I believe my athletic director does that right now. He's a great dude, Blake Spindler. He's awesome. Reminds me a lot of my former boss, Curtis. So, I think those things are important to me. And, yeah, I'm an alumni at Finlandia, kind of, built that program up. We went from, about 10 guys every year, 10, 12 guys every year before I came in to having 40. Um, did I want to leave that? I don't know. It's a tough question,
It's tough.
right? It's
Yeah.
always a tough question when you've got some ties
Yep.
there. But I'm glad that, Coach Luke took that over, former player, mine, former assistant. I can call him anytime, day or night, and get an update on Finlandia baseball.
That's awesome.
And those guys reach out to me. They still talk to me, so we've developed a lot of really good relationships there. So it was an easy transition out. Definitely a lot of emotions, the day that I have to announce that. It was a tough day, tough morning. So love those boys, and that was one of the hardest things I've done in my
Well,
life.
no,
So
hey, happy wife, happy life, right? I mean, I'm sure she's been there for you for many, many years, and kind of the payback is a great thing. So I think that's awesome. So what is the difference? I mean, there's quite a bit of difference going from a D3, NCAA sanctioned school to NAIA. It really opens up probably a lot of opportunities as a coach as well. Talk about kind of the difference and really, gear this towards players that may be looking at a, D3 NAIA JUCO school. What makes presentation and an NAIA program what you like and why somebody should be looking at it?
yeah, so I mean, let me start this on my previous experience before I get farther down the road here on that. Finlandia was 320 inches of snow every year, the snowiest campus in the country, 0 home games, and the longest throw we could make in our little gym was 88 feet. Um, so coming to Aberdeen, South Dakota, where we can play some spring
Right.
games, we've got a dome. We've got a dome over the turf football field, so that's amazing, right? And our freshman dorms are some of the best I've seen. So the facilities draw me to it, and they usually draw kids to it as well, right? Now, the transition from NCAA D3 to NAI has definitely been interesting for me. Um, I get to play with some scholarship money, so that's
Yep. Yep.
fun. That's something that's really cool for me. And the other part of it is I've seen really good players at Division III, so my expectation for players coming in is a little bit different than I think most, right? And of course, I was blessed to play in the WIAC with UW Whitewater, Oshkosh,
Oh
Stevens
yeah.
Point, and all those amazing coaches that do a great job of recruiting awesome in-house talent. So seeing those guys go out there and take the field, and then coming here and having some scholarship money, our expectation is to find those guys that throw 90, find those infielders that should not be playing NAIA baseball,
Right.
or should, I guess. um, but they should probably be playing at a high level, right? And we want those kids to come here. So I think that when it comes to, the draw for students is the facilities and the scholar, that's important. So I think those are things that they help families, they help kids. I don't know if you have a dome on campus, I don't know how you can't get better,
Right.
so
No, I think that's really good. You get kind of an insight into the differences, and I think the scholarship money obviously is going to change how you do things, right? And being able to play with that, I'm sure there's a little bit more. I would say expectation, but it's not really expectation. It's more of you only have so much, right? So you can't give everybody the scholarship. So, the way that you manage and recruit certainly is probably a little bit different, and learning that as you go. This is your first year. Have you had the opportunity to bring in some kids to the program, or are you kind of working with what you got today?
Yeah, we're working with what we got. I got here on August 23rd.
Yeah.
We literally were supposed to start practice like the next day. And I had to do a bunch of NAI eligibility stuff, which took me, 2 weeks. So we started a little bit late too. So we're going with what we got this year. I'm always hitting the recruiting train really hard. So, we'll have a bunch of kids next year that are brand new. So some JUCO guys and big mix of JUCO guys and high school freshmen.
That's
Or,
awesome. No, that
excuse me, high school
yeah,
seniors.
that's great. What kind of player? We talked a bit about it, but from a culture, I mean, there's a lot of information you've provided. So kind of summarize if the type of player that you're looking for, as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the two phrases that I use are kids that care and a polished athlete. I don't need you to be a polished baseball player as a high school freshman,
Right.
or keep saying that, high school senior.
Right.
I don't need you to be a polished baseball player, but I need you to be a polished athlete. I need you to know your way around the weight room. I need you to know your way around accountability and time management, those things, right? Just the overall aspect of being a student athlete. And kids that care, kids that want to get better, they're here to get coached.
Yeah.
And if I'm not coaching, I don't want to do it. So that's one of those things is I tell our guys all the time, if you go 0 for 10 again, that's not an opportunity for us to let you go or recruit over that. It's an opportunity for us to coach, and that's what we're here to do. And we love that. That's our job. We come in every day for that reason. We come in excited. I wake up at, 6, 7 in the morning because I want to coach.
Yeah.
So
No, that's we do things that are important, and you want kids that baseball is an important thing, and I think that's really good. What makes presentation unique, and obviously the dome over the field, which is great, especially in the northern state. But really talk about the presentation as an NAIA school, private university, kind of what it brings that kids that may have not looked at an NAIA before, which is ridiculous, by the way. I mean, kids need to be opening up that kind of to every opportunity because there's such great programs all over the country. But really focus on the NAIA side, the private school, and what kids can expect from Presentation College.
yeah, I think there's a few things that are really unique about PC. So we're in Aberdeen. It's about 35,000 people. Don't quote me on that. I'd have to actually look it up. There's everything that you need, but we're on like the north side of town and we're kind of isolated. Like it doesn't seem like it because you drive right out of, some city blocks and all of a sudden there's PC, but it just the campus seems very private. And I like that. I think that's really cool. I think it offers our kids an opportunity to go do what they need to do, but also have that space where this is our campus and this is us, right? It's not in the middle of town or anything. I think that's unique. I think that's really cool. I also think that our dorms are very unique. They're pretty much 4-bed, 2-bath apartments. Freshmen get their own room. There's a living room and a full kitchen in those dorms, So when freshmen come in and they're like, this is my dorm. Yeah, this is your dorm. This is somewhere else. This may be senior, junior living, right? Junior apartment style living on campus, right? But we provide that for our freshmen. So I think that's awesome. The other thing is we're a small athletic based campus. We've got a very good nursing program, very good online nursing program. All that stuff is great. But a lot of the kids here are athletes, and we had that at Finlandia too. And I find that atmosphere to be super welcoming and super inclusive to all of our athletes. It's, kids are rushing over to class from a workout and nobody says anything. Everybody's like, yeah, how was your workout, man? What did Coach Grant have you doing today? Because they want to know what they're going to be doing later on in the day, right?
Well, that's cool.
I think that everybody around campus knows that these kids they're going to be running from spot to spot. They're going to be gone on the weekends. They're going to be gone midweek for some games, so everybody's really supportive of that. And I think that's a tough thing to find sometimes in higher education is, that overall campus support of athletes. So
You know what? That's a really interesting and great point. And I'd like you to expand a little bit on it, because I don't know if high school seniors, they don't know the difference between one school to the other, right? And even visiting them, you don't really get an idea of what it's like when you're on campus. Talk about that athletic centric type atmosphere, and being a kind of a remote learning for the other degrees, and why that is important. You even mentioned it. Most of the people there are athletes. They're kind of going through the same thing, but expand on that a little bit for those that may not understand what that really is.
yeah, so okay, I've got a couple examples that I can give. Right, my wife went to UW Stout, and trust me, I'm upset at my buddy Coach Ben Kincaid every time she goes back, because he gives her some baseball gear and she comes back with it. I'm like, come on. And they were at our conference, so it was always one of those back and forth in-house things, right, at our home. But she went there, and she has maybe one reference from her teachers, right, and that's a campus of like 9,000 kids. Now, two of my former assistants, Joey Krug and Luke Paul, and even Aaron Froelich, those guys went to Finlandia. They've got teachers that are references for them on their resume, right? They've got multiple of them. I know, even our sports management professor, Steve Nordstrom, my former, head coach as an assistant, he's a reference for all those guys, and it's personal. And that's something that is very important to me. I find that to be just super beneficial. You've got coaches that are references. You've got teachers that are references. You've got people that knew you away from home for 4 years in your early adult life as references, right? So I think it just offers that opportunity to build much better relationships with faculty and staff. And I think that's important in college life. For some kids, it may not be, right. For some kids, they might want the party scene, or the Greek life, stuff like that. That may be something that's important to a kid. But I think for a lot of kids that are looking, hey, I'm going to play baseball, but I also need to worry about my professional life after college. I think that's got to be part of the building block.
Totally agree. I think any players that are listening to this, that is such an important part that doesn't get talked about enough, because you're going to college for a career, right? Baseball is a tool. Baseball is a vehicle to help you get there, and it's creating a great kind of a structure to help you succeed in that. But I think people miss the real value of having those references, right? I mean, we're doing this to get to our career, and without those references, it makes it more difficult. And so any way that you can, prop up what you're doing, and have those references is really important. I think I appreciate, Coach, you sharing that, because that's something that high school seniors aren't really thinking about, right? Especially if they're baseball, driven. They're thinking what the program provides, what the facilities provide, the games that they play, different things that they may not be thinking about. So I appreciate you sharing that. This has been a lot of fun. You bring in a lot of knowledge and a lot of information for both coaches and for players, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. You said that you've got the team that you have. You've had an opportunity to meet them and practice and kind of get things going. What do you expect for this year?
Well, I expect us to be a little bit better than last year. I think we're still going to have our, pains this year. We're a little light on the pitching staff. I think we do a good job offensively. We've kind of changed the offensive outlook of our program, and the guys have done a great job of buy-in on that. I think the most important piece is that our guys love being together. They just absolutely love it, and I think that they're going to run through some walls for each other. I hope they don't run through walls for me. I might be the only coach in the country that says that, but I want them to play for each other. They don't need to play for me. I'm literally navigating the ship; they're steering it.
That's great.
So. I think they're going to do well. I think they're going to grow a lot. I think the junior class, I've got a big junior class. I think I'm going to graduate like 19 or 20 kids from that class. And those guys, that group, they're a core group. They're close. They love each other. They love the seniors. I think our senior day this year is going to be emotional. I'm ready for it. My sunglasses won't come off. And then I think that might be, unique for a first year head coach at a new program. So yeah, I see our culture being really good. I think we've got to do one heck of a job recruiting junior college pitching, and high school pitching. And that's going to be, our main mission for the year. But our mission as a team is we need to get better offensively. We need to cut down on the strikeouts, and we need to increase the average.
That's good.
So
That's good. Well, I this is awesome because I look, I was thinking presentation. A lot of these smaller schools, they typically look to kind of the local area to recruit, and I think you started off by saying I'm looking everywhere. We don't have a lot of kids in this area that we can pull from, so we're open to everywhere, and I think that's important for players and parents listening to this. Is there's a lot of schools that are looking, and you gotta do your homework, and presentation is certainly a place that you certainly need to take a look at. And Coach Brandt, it's been an honor to talk with you. I know that time is valuable, and you've got a busy slate in front of you, but I appreciate you joining the Baseball Blue Book podcast, and look forward to watching your program and success. Thank you very much, sir.
Absolutely, Eric. I appreciate your time.